In June of 1983, within the pages of an unassuming magazine meant for new mangaka to practice writing stories, the entire world of manga and anime changed forever, but no one knew it yet. In this issue of the magazine Fresh Jump, the up-and-coming author of the gag manga Dr. Slump would take a shot at writing a more action-focused manga inspired by Chinese martial arts and mythology. This two-chapter one-shot would tell the story of Tangtong, the original Goku. These two chapters are probably one of the most interesting stories ever written by Toriyama in his immense catalog, as it offers a look into his creative process and shows us what Dragon Ball could have looked like if things had even gone slightly differently. Today, I'd like to talk to you and tell you the story of the original Dragon Ball. Today, we explore the weird but oddly familiar story of Dragon Boy. For the longest time, if you lived anywhere but Japan, it was essentially impossible to get your hands on this story, let alone an English translation. Not only was Fresh Jump for the most part entirely forgotten and unknown outside of Japan, but at the time, the significance of the story was obviously not yet realized. However, in 2021, after more than 3 decades, the story became available to read in English for the first time as Akira Toriyama's Manga Theater was officially released in the West. Originally released throughout the 80s and 90s, this compilation contains 21 short manga written by Toriyama across his career, including some like Pink and Go-Go Ackman, which have gotten their own anime adaptations. Importantly for this video though, it contained both chapters of Dragon Boy, finally making it officially available and readable in English for the first time. So now, we can finally see how Dragon Ball started, what parts of the story changed, and what stayed the same. The story begins with a young boy named Tangtong training in the mountains, practicing martial arts moves before suddenly jumping up and shattering a rock with a kick. This scene is directly taken and used in the Dragon Ball manga, with the only difference being choreography, and that Goku kicks a log rather than a rock. However, this is where the similarities end for this part. Tangtong's master, whose name is also translated as Roshi, appears and tests his abilities while riding on the flying Nimbus. He concludes that Tangtong's training is complete and that he is ready for a proper mission, escorting a princess to her kingdom known as the Land of Blossoms. Clearly, this character is the beta version of Bulma, though her design and character are completely different and resemble something closer to Chi-Chi. Identically, however, both stories have the same joke, with Goku and Tangtong both having never seen a woman before and not understanding the difference in anatomy between genders. Before they leave, Tangtong is given a sacred treasure. When charged with ki, it will apparently summon a dragon. This clearly is the prototype for the Dragon Balls, but used completely differently. There's no wishes, and the characters have it right from the start. But with that, they set off. Immediately though, while Goku and Tangtong at this point are nearly identical, the princess and Bulma could not be more different. The princess is established to be far less proactive and capable than Bulma in essentially 2 pages, being outright established to be spoiled and complaining all the time, which is certainly an interesting change compared to the inventor who was perfectly fine traveling alone before she came across Goku. It's here though that at a well, we get actually our first fight in the story, with Tangtong coming across the demon known as Suijaki, who quite literally is a combination of the pterodactyl and the bear thief from the first 3 chapters of Dragon Ball. I mean, literally look at these guys' designs. It's like a fusion or something. Pushed into a corner in this fight, Tangtong attempts to summon the dragon, only for it to be completely useless and tiny. Getting his shirt slashed, it's revealed that Tangtong actually has dragon wings, which allow him to easily defeat the demon and bring an end to the chapter. Before we move on to the next chapter, I think the most interesting part so far is how this story's version of the Dragon Balls are essentially a subversion and the complete opposite of what they would become. Easily obtained and completely useless instead of hard to obtain and insanely helpful. It's kind of insane that Toriyama made the most useless thing in his draft into the main title of his final story. The second chapter begins, and another interesting aspect about the world of Dragon Boy is revealed, with repeated mentions of a war that happened in the past which ravished the land. It seems that Dragon Boy had more of an interest in fleshing out the history of the world compared to Dragon Ball, as even today there are still many parts about the history of Earth that we kind of never know, but that's not really important to Dragon Ball's story, so I don't know. It's here the characters run across a character who first appears to be this story's version of Yamcha, an older male character who shows interest in the female lead, and even mentions mountain bandits. However, this guy is actually just War and Oolong at the same time, having shape-shifting abilities while also having a true form of a cartoon cat. It's here, when crossing a bridge, that this new group comes across an ancient robot who once again is a fusion of characters, who appears like the pirate robot as well as Oolong's transformed state. Tangtong is unable to beat him until this original Puar tricks the robot into retiring and giving up. The three of them continue their journey with the Land of Blossoms still a long way away, and unfortunately, they never get there, as this is where the last chapter of Dragon Boy ends. So, what do I make of Dragon Boy? To be honest, I'm pretty happy with the final product that we got. Even comparing just the first 2 chapters of this story to Dragon Ball, it's clear Toriyama had drastically refined his vision. Not only has the art drastically improved, but the characters in Dragon Ball are just more lively and stand out more compared to their originals. Firstly, their designs in Dragon Ball are infinitely better. Goku's iconic hair and Bulma's far more unique outfit aesthetic make her stand out a lot more. To be fair though, Dragon Ball has a lot more room to breathe, as a lot of the potential long-term payoffs of Dragon Ball are revealed instantly. Both Tangtong having wings and the Dragon Balls being useless are plot points that likely would not have appeared in the first chapter if Dragon Boy had become an official long-term serialized manga. As in Dragon Ball, these similar plot points don't appear until the very end, with Goku going Great Ape and Oolong wasting the Dragon Balls being the end of the first arc rather than appearing in literally the first chapter back to back. But the single most interesting difference to me is what both stories take and don't take from Chinese myth and just general mythology. Goku and Dragon Ball in the early plot of the series borrow heavily from Journey to the West, which I talked about in my Goku vs. Wukong video. Oddly enough though, the rough draft of Dragon Boy doesn't do this in the same way. While yes, he is acting in a Wukong-like role of helping someone on a journey across the land, Tangtong is clearly not Wukong, as he's clearly a dragon rather than a monkey. However, on the other hand, the actual world around Tangtong is far more mythologically inspired. Instead of fighting just dinosaurs and anthropomorphic criminals like Goku does in Dragon Ball, Tangtong's opponents are things like demons and yokai, mythological entities who either never appear in Dragon Ball or take on a very different function and appearance within the world itself. It's also interesting how Roshi and Grandpa Gohan are seemingly combined into a single character, a change I'm really happy Dragon Ball ultimately went with. But overall, I think we're honestly incredibly lucky that this work has been preserved and finally officially released. So many times, these kinds of stories become lost media that no one ever sees again. But please, let me know, would you have wanted to see Dragon Boy over Dragon Ball? Would you have at least liked to see the series get animated or get a few more chapters? Or are you happy that Toriyama improved off this draft and gave us classic Dragon Ball? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll catch you in the next one. As always, thank you to my members who got to see this video early. Your support really means a lot. See ya.